Mojah. Mojah is life, it's love, it's beauty, it's strength, it's creative. It flows and it grows people, it develops minds, bodies, and spirit. Mojah is an opportunity for the Creator to work through me and use my talents and the gifts that have been given to me to make a difference in the world. I do believe that an art form should speak, should share, it should inspire. So Mojah is the sum total of all the art forms and all the things that come together in my life to use it as a dance form. It started years ago. I started dancing at 3. My first teacher was my mother, and I trained classically in ballet and professionally as a modern dancer in a form called Horton technique. I continued to train, and then I was introduced to African dance. And when I was introduced to African dance, it opened up a whole new world for me. And something that was deeply rooted in me, because even as a child, not having trained in African dance, whenever I would hear drums, there would be this strong, warm feeling that would come deep inside my soul. And I was like, what is this feeling? So I became a majorette, and then later I would dance to anything that had a drum rhythm. And then I met Ojinga, and he said, oh my goodness, let me help this dancer, because he brought into my life, my studio, and the dancers, the traditional rhythms that he had learned through the Dunham program. And the Dunham program is something that's very, very instrumental in Mojah. I was studying at NYU, working on my PhD in dance, and I discovered this lady, Catherine Dunham, who I had heard of already as I continued to work on my concepts of Mojah. And I left NYU after 4 intense summers to go and meet this lady, Catherine Dunham, who had paved the way for African American dance starting back in the 1930s. And I was like, wow, this lady is tremendous. I mean, she was doing the things that I'm doing now in the 30s. So I thought that was such a miracle. And I think spiritually, so many things came together, because having met her, having met Ojinga, who had already studied under her program and performed for 15 years, this whole pathway opened up. And then my youngest daughter, Kikora, who became a dancer or was born to dance also, studied under me and many masters, and out of all of her education, getting a law degree and everything, she danced and danced growing up. And I can remember even going to her sometimes saying, remember this movement. And then our parallels got stronger and stronger as she became this dancer in her own right, but making a choice to also embrace Mojah. So Mojah in Kiswahili means one. And what's so amazing about that is during the time when Mojah was evolving, I would just write down modern jazz. So at first it was Mojah, and I said, nobody will ever say the F. I said Mojah, African, and I just kept playing around, and I came up with Moja. Not at the time, not knowing that Moja was even Kiswahili for one. And then later, as I was introduced to dance in Kingston, Jamaica, by way again of Ojinga, and became a guest tutor at the Etna Manley College, and became familiar with the Jamaican culture, which I love so much. Jah, meaning creator, brought another entity into the whole Mojah world. So I added the Jah, Mojah, M-O-J-A-H, which means one with the Creator. So when I started doing Mojah, which is a combination of modern and African, I want you to know in the 70s that was very unpopular. So I had to battle all the people that would say that's not really African, that's not really modern. You are doing this too much, or you're doing that too little, and I struggled through it. And of course, now we're in times where fusing of forms is very, very popular. One of the highlights of Mojah for me was going to Africa, because in Africa, the drummers came to me and said, "You are the greatest dancer on this earth because you brought us you." And that's what Mojah is. It's a sum total of my womanhood, my existence in the world as it exists as a creator, and all those things that make it and embrace it in this time. And I'm thankful for Mojah. I'm thankful for the gift.
For my career, Mojah has been the cornerstone of my teaching and the research that I do as a professor of dance at Penn State. At the time I started, we were instructed to come up with a research agenda. And I reached back into the roots of what had been there for me my entire time as a young dancer and growing up. Mojah has been a technique that I learned from, but also used to be creative and to explore on my own. As I continued my research as a professor, Mojah became an inspiration for me to also give back to young students. A lot of my students have never experienced a technique that blended various cultural and artistic forms and putting them together. And it's been very heartwarming for students to come to me and say, "Wow, Mojah speaks to me, it speaks to my spirit. This is what I want to do. I want to blend culture and identity and movement into one and inspire people through performance and through giving back." So Mojah for me has been a way of taking what has been given to me and then making even more out of it by giving that to younger students and inspiring them to find their own path and to create new ways for them to explore dance as a medium of communication, as a medium of giving back, and a medium of being themselves and finding themselves through art and expression. The future of Mojah, we hope, is endless and limitless. It started with one woman, one idea, my mother, Terry Ajile Axum, and through her tireless efforts to continue to research and find people in her history, such as Catherine Dunham, who done the same thing with her blending and her traveling to different places in the Caribbean and studying the peoples of African descent and bringing that culture to the concert stage. We hope that Mojah is a platform where other people of whatever identity can use as a way to explore themselves and culture and just bringing themselves to a different, higher place and extending themselves through art and expression. As it exists, Mojah is in a dance form for young dancers, so you can train technically if you want to learn the basics of any traditional dance. Mojah incorporates ballet, it incorporates the Dunham, it incorporates West African, so in that way it trains dancers. In addition, we have Mojah Size class. Mojah Size is geared towards the everyday person who might not be a dancer, but we want to stay in shape. You want to make sure that you're keeping your body healthy and fit. There's Mojah Size. I use Mojah with a group of dancers that are ages 8 to 18, and these young students are not necessarily dancers, but we use Mojah to really help broaden their artistic horizons and use choreography, spoken word, and different cultural elements to allow them to experience dance and performance art.